Hello friends, more depressed about a video game patch being delayed by about a month than I am about all of 2020 here, bringing you another Dota 2 video on the worst, most game-losing habit in each role in Dota 2. By far, the most infuriating bad habit that Position 5 players have is standing in lane, soaking XP, contributing absolutely nothing. And here's the problem with this habit that makes it so bad. It's not just that you're soaking XP from your carry. Carry players are big whiny babies, don't get me wrong, but there's a mute feature, and they'll hit jungle creeps for the next 30 minutes and forget that you ever stole any experience from them. The problem here is not your carry. This is a problem that hurts you and your gameplay as a Position 5. You know that typical trope where people complain that it's impossible to climb MMR as a Position 5? Good Position 5 players will tell you that that is a myth. It's bullshit. It's no problem at all to climb if you are good at the role. The problem is that the window where Position 5s often stand around doing nothing is exactly when good Position 5 players will have their biggest impact on the game. And this isn't by random chance. Between roughly 0 to 15 minutes is exactly when Position 5s are the strongest heroes on the map. This is where you, as a Pos 5, can actually have a huge impact on the game if you make the right moves. As a Position 5, you can stop the enemy carry from snowballing if you kill them between 0 to 15 minutes. As a Position 5, you can take enemy towers if you rotate to them between 0 to 15 minutes. As a Position 5, you can get farmed and carry the game yourself if you set your team up to be strong enough to farm enemy heroes instead of creeps, and then you take all of the extra creeps on the map. And when can you set this up? Of course, between 0 to 15 minutes into the game. After 15 minutes, however, most Position 5s just kind of stand around soaking ganks, using smokes, placing wards, and sentries. And don't get me wrong, this certainly can be quite impactful, but it's nowhere near the impact that you can have when you are a golden god in the early game. So, if you're a Position 5 and you want to win games, I would highly recommend that you do the following things. Smoke to set up wards and gank around the 5-minute bounties and catapults. If your carry doesn't need help, look to secure the 4-minute power rune or rotate mid with a smoke at any point. After about 5 to 6 minutes, try to leave lane and go hit a tower that you can pressure with your presence on the map. Usually it's the mid or safe lane tower. If a bunch of enemies rotate, call it space and then go do other stuff. The current worst habit in the 4 role is people playing as a second Position 5. The higher and higher rating you go, the far less of this you see happening in games. The higher and higher you look, the way more defined the 4 role becomes. Instead of just being one of 2 supports, the 4-role job becomes completely different than the job of a Position 5. And this, once again, is no coincidence at all. Often in a game of Dota, there's going to be a lot of extra farm on the map. In low-rated games, there's lots of extra farm on the map because people just suck at punishing you for being greedy. In high-rated games, there's lots of extra farm on the map because people are way better at punishing cores for being greedy. So cores will often just jungle and leave the dangerous farm for some peasant to go feed their life away to take. This is precisely where the Position 4 comes in. If your team doesn't want to fight just yet, you're usually all just standing around smacking creeps. The 4-role's job is to go to the most dangerous lane or jungle camp and smack creeps there. The beauty of this is that if the enemy team kills you, who cares? They're committing resources to killing a 4 position and your team is farming elsewhere. But you actually end up getting really farmed while doing this, while helping your team delay the game. A lot of the time, 4 positions actually get more farm than offlaners, because even in these stalemate scenarios where everybody is farming, offlaners are usually the ones running around looking to fight. So, because they can't do it, that leaves the next schmuck in line to go farm dangerous lanes, and that's the Position 4. So, if you're playing some Position 5 hero as a 4, not only do most 5s have terrible spells for quickly pushing out lanes, but they often don't scale that well with farm. So if the enemy team has an actual 4 hero playing 4 position, and you have a 5 hero playing 4 position, you are essentially battling with 3 cores versus 4 cores. That, my friends, is a losing battle. So please, please, for the love of Ice Frog, Stop playing Undying as a goddamn position 4. If you want to win more from the 4 position, simply pick a hero that can easily push lanes that also scales well with farm. The worst habit for offlaners, which may possibly be the most game-losing habit on this list, is the fact that people play way too safe. As an offlaner, your job is to be Rambo. Good offlaners are the type of people to get a stealth mission in a game and beat it by running in, triggering every alarm, and killing everyone. The more chaotic and ridiculous you are, the better. Your main job is to waste as much of the enemy team's resources as possible between about 5 to 30 minutes into the game, give or take a few minutes depending on what's needed in the game. Why? Because somebody has to do it in order for your carry to farm and hit their timing in the late game. The enemy team has to have someone to chase around on their side of the map, so distracted that they don't hit any towers on your side of the map. And that's exactly why offlaners get to hit creeps in the laning phase instead of the 4 position, because you need a little bit of net worth to be enough of a threat to actually cause chaos on the map. So, one of the most frustrating things to see offlaners do is play in a carry-like fashion, favoring safe play over space-making play. If you're an offlaner, I would recommend you be the guy to do the following things. Walk up high grounds first. It is your job to tank spells and give your team vision. If you're waiting for someone else to run up high grounds because you're too scared, you're playing the wrong role. Start team fights. It's your job to get fights started. If you're waiting for other people to start fights because, once again, you're too scared, you're playing the wrong role. Farm unsafe farm, preferably in front of the enemy base. If you're taking safe farm, once again, you're playing the wrong role. If you're losing your lane, don't go back to the triangle and hit creeps. Instead, cut creeps in front of the enemy base because it gets you incredibly farmed while making them run at you with all 5 of their heroes. Remember, in this role, you are Rambo, not goddamn V for Vendetta. There is no subtlety in the offlane, only guns blazing. Next, let's talk about the mid lane. What makes a mid laner strong is also what makes them weak in high doses. It's a delicate balance. You want a mid laner that is so obsessed with matchups that they will figure out how to get every single CS that they can in the lane, because the lane gets so much XP and gold that their impact is massive. But for a lot of mid laners, a horrendous habit is that they obsess over the mid lane matchup so much that they continue obsessing over it past the point where it's even useful. It's like the laning stage never ends for these guys. In teamfights, they focus the enemy mid laner. In ganks, they focus the enemy mid laner. It's all about outskilling that one guy that they happen to lane against at the start of the game, and that's not how good mid laners think. If you watch a good mid laner, like Gunner or CCNC play, you'll notice that they will often leave their lane at 6 minutes and only really go back to sometimes push out a wave. But if a support can do that job, then they'll just give the middle lane to somebody else. Why do they do this? Because they realize that at about 5 to 6 minutes into the game, they are going to have some serious weight that they can throw around. So they can massively progress the game forward by being active. If a mid laner shows up to a lane, no matter which way it's going, the enemy team will either have to leave or bring a bunch of heroes to deal with them. You either show up to a lane and get an early tower, or the enemy team will rotate a shitload of heroes to try and deal with you. Probably the best rotation that you can make is to the enemy safe lane tower at about 5 to 6 minutes, because as we talked about before, this matches up with when the offlaner wants to fight as well. Conveniently, it also matches up with a timing where the enemy carry isn't particularly happy with you showing up in their lane, so they'll often leave and just give you the tower for free. On top of this, the enemy safe lane tower is easy to take due to the distance between the tier 1 and tier 2, and it opens up a free bounty rune and a few jungle camps for your team to farm. The worst habit that bad carry players have is farming unsafe farm unnecessarily. I'm not talking about those games where you have to take unsafe farm because the enemy team is so good that they're forcing you to have no other option. I'm talking about games where there is plenty of farm on the map, the game is perfectly winnable, and for some unknown reason, the carry refuses to leave a certain area of the map. The most common place that you see this manifest is during the laning stage, where carry players obsess over this idea that the safe lane is their lane and that they have to keep going back. But it's a bait. The safe lane in a lot of games becomes very not safe after 5 to 6 minutes. It's true that good carry players will stay in the safe lane if there's some magic immune tanky carry like Nakes because they know that they can't die, but bad carry players will stay in the safe lane no matter what. Even if there's some insanely squishy hero like Drow, they'll die 4 times before leaving the lane, even if they're level 6 and perfectly capable of jungling. And the thing is, as a carry, it's not your job to make space. As we talked about before, it's everybody else's job to make space for you in the early game. So, you don't have to be the person standing in dangerous places unless you absolutely know that you can do it safely. Your job is to carry the game, so go hit the safest creeps on the map if that's what it takes. And this problem extends far beyond the laning stage. A huge problem I see time and time again is that bad carry players will sit and farm their own jungle even after their safe lane tower falls. But ironically, after this tower falls, the enemy jungle becomes safer than your own jungle. Because at least if you die there, you're far away from your base and you won't lose towers. So, what I propose is that if you are a carry, think carefully about where you need to farm. Where everyone else farms should be determined by what you want to farm, because it is your job to carry the game. So, if you need the offlane to farm, go literally steal CS from your offlaner until they leave the lane. Them raging at you will actually lead to a better outcome than you feeding 10 deaths in your own jungle. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you could like, subscribe, and especially comment, and comment if you have any medical training as well, specifically with small rodents and animals, specifically ferrets, because ever since getting involved with the Flanagan Corporation of Hobo's empire, I have been the storage facility. My house is the storage facility for the large amount of ferrets that are used to carry out these different attacks across the city. And so there's a lot of rabid ones, hundreds, thousands of bites on my body. It's becoming a bit of an issue for me, and so if you could comment any medical advice with regards to that, if you could subscribe and also like, because YouTube will boost me in the algorithm, which will allow me to pay for ointments and different things like that, I would really appreciate it. In any case, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in another video.